Okay, when you probably bought your DSLR or digital SLR, you've probably noticed that on the left-hand side or wherever it's located, you've got many different settings and many different features to the camera. Now, this can be quite confusing for a lot of people because, you know, what situation requires which setting, and it's very hard to understand which. Now, rather than worry about all the auto modes, let me just explain quickly the only real features you'll ever need. Manual, where the camera's fully manual and you're in control of everything. TV or shutter priority, where you're in control of how fast the shutter is. Aperture priority, where you're in control of the lens and the aperture setting the iris. Then you've got program mode, which is basically an intelligent mode that the camera will set everything for you, and you have quite a lot of control over that automatic setting. And then you've got a green square. Most cameras have this green square, and it's just a full auto setting like a point and shoot camera, where if you're in a certain situation, you just don't know what to do, you don't know how to set up the shot, you basically just point and shoot and the camera will pretty much do everything for you. Now, for a lot of older cameras, older DSLRs, when you're on that green setting, check to make sure that you can still shoot RAW, because I think with a lot of older cameras, it will only shoot in JPEG, and that may kind of throw you out a bit. If you still want an auto mode and you want to guarantee you're shooting RAW and have some control, I would shoot in program mode. Now, when would you use the other settings? Aperture priority, where you want to be in control of the aperture, I would suggest that you use it mainly for things like landscapes where you need to control the depth of field. Because if you remember, a wide aperture at say 1.4 or 2.8 will give you very shallow depth of field where not much is in focus other than that which you're focusing on. Whereas a smaller aperture of say f8, f11 will have most of the scene in focus. So looking at something like this idyllic scene in Sutton Point in Dorset, I would use aperture priority set to f8 so that I know that the depth of field is going to be good. Let's take a quick photo. And you can see that almost everything's in focus. Now, shutter priority, where I want to be in control of the shutter, I would use that for things like sports or nature or anywhere where I've got a fast moving subject. If you think about it, if I was on aperture priority and the shutter was fluctuating and I took a photo of a skier or a motorbike flying past, the shutter might be too low to actually capture the scene. Whereas if I'm in control of the shutter, I can set it to 800th of a second or 1,000th of a second, and I know that that's going to be fast enough to capture whatever I'm shooting. The aperture can then do whatever it wants. So that's covered aperture priority and shutter priority. The last one is manual. If I want to be in complete control of all of the settings, such as somewhere like a studio where there's continuous light and I know it's going to be the same light throughout, I would use manual setting. That means I'm in control of everything. I'm in a subdued environment where I've got time to actually play with the settings, make sure I get the exposure right, set the camera to manual so every single photo is going to come out exactly the same. And it's important for you to use these different features and get to know each one and when's best to use them in each situation. So again, use manual, aperture priority, shutter priority, and say program mode if you're in fully automatic. Have a practice with them, have a play, see what they all do, and just see how it affects your photos.